Hey you guys, today I finally had an appointment where nothing was wrong. And honestly, after the last month that I've had, it felt like a really big deal. I had my 1 month post op today with Dr. Dalla from the bone and tissue graft that he did back on June 25th. And for the first time in what feels like forever, this was just a normal check in. There was no emergency, no unexpected bleeding, no new infections, no needing to rush back into the office because something had gone sideways, right? It was just a normal appointment. He looked at my overall healing and told me that everything looked like it was healing really well and filling in really well. If you've been following my journey, you already know that recovery from this most recent surgery did not get off to an easy start. The surgery itself was back on June 25th. Dr. Dalla ended up removing an implant, and he also did a bone and tissue graft on the front of my gums here. He did a bone and tissue graft on the front as well as on the bottom side where he removed the implant from. Um, there had been a soft tissue infection in that area, and when he cleaned it out, it ended up creating a pretty big divot. And so he needed to fill that in with bone and tissue from my palate, the roof of my mouth. That first night after that revision surgery, I had a lot of bleeding. It felt like it just wouldn't stop. Um, Eventually, I did call and was able to get in first thing the very next morning. I got in and it actually wasn't bleeding. It was it was oozing blood, but what was happening was I had a piece of excess glue on the roof of my mouth where they had sealed up the donor site that was kind of sticking out from under the stent. And as blood was just kind of oozing like it does after a surgery, it was collecting and coagulating on that piece of rough glue, causing a massive blood clot, which, because my mouth is moist, saliva and everything, it just constantly looked like I was bleeding because this clot was just always moist. So I just always had blood in my mouth. So they removed the stent, they cleaned out the blood clot, they removed the excess glue that everything was kind of sticking to. They put the stent back in and sent me on my way, and everything was going well until about 9 days later when I randomly just started having bleeding. It was, going on 2 weeks from the June 25th surgery, 9 days post, and just started bleeding. Nothing happened. I was still wearing the stent 24/7, with the exception of once an evening. I was taking the stent out, doing a saltwater rinse, putting it right back in. But it just started bleeding. I took the stent out. I put pressure on the roof of my mouth, got it to stop, replaced the stent. And then that evening, I was just kind of up walking around and I sneezed. And as I sneezed, it just immediately started bleeding again. Like blood just kind of went flying everywhere. It started bleeding really bad. I removed the stent, put pressure, got it to stop again. And then obviously called them because I was like, this just isn't normal. They got me in the very next day. I had to drive down to their Elk Grove office instead of their Roseville office, which is like a 15-minute drive versus an hour drive. But, when you want to be seen, that's what you do. You go where they are. So I drove down there, was seen, and actually what it turned out to be was, because my mouth was so swollen, the stent wasn't fitting right. So it was rubbing, causing irritation on the donor site, which was then not able to heal, and it was bleeding and it was just irritated. So the stent is meant to protect the donor site where they take the bone and tissue from, make sure that it's allowed to heal, not get irritated. If you're eating food, not get anything like up in there. Since I was only doing liquids, they said just take the stent out, keep the stent for when I started eating soft solids, which I haven't really still. So I've never had to put the stent back in, and now it's fully healed. But they said stop wearing the stent at that point unless you're going to eat food, because it's irritating the donor site and we need that to heal. So I went ahead and did that, stopped wearing it. And then at about 3 weeks post-op, I mean, just before 3 weeks post-op, a couple days after the bleeding thing happened, I noticed on my gum line, I went to brush my teeth and just kind of went like that to brush, and I noticed a small yellow whitish abscess or infection on my gum line right at the tissue graft site where he had placed the bone and tissue graft. Obviously, like, I immediately started freaking out. It was a Saturday at like 9 o'clock, so obviously they are closed. I, panic called the on-call doctor, let them know what's going on. I sent an email to the office manager, letting her know what was going on. Um, and she was able to get back to me Sunday morning. She sent in a prescription. Well, she got the doctor to send in a prescription for a stronger antibiotic. I had done 2 rounds of zithromycin, and this time I did a full, I think it was a 10-day course of clindamycin 4 times a day. I literally, even in the middle of the night, had an alarm and would get up and take it in the middle of the night. So every 6 hours for, I think it was about 10 days, I went ahead and took that. Within just a couple of days of starting antibiotics this time, the infection cleared up. By the time I got in to see Dr. Dalla that week, the infection was gone. He said it looked like it was healing well. Just keep taking the antibiotics. Let the healing continue. Let's knock whatever's in there out. Honestly, at that point though, when I first saw the infection, I just felt defeated. I'd already gone through the original infection. I had already needed an additional surgery. I'd already lost one implant. I'd already dealt with the bleeding and the swelling and the bruising and the stent and the pain and the difficulty talking and eating. And suddenly I was faced with another infection and another round of antibiotics, stronger antibiotics, like I said. But it was hard to not think, here we go again. It was hard to not wonder whether that meant the graft was failing, or I was going to lose another implant, or whether my final teeth were going to be delayed again. And that's probably been one of the hardest parts of this entire journey. It hasn't been so much the physical pain or the discomfort, it's been the emotional roller coaster, thinking things are finally getting better and then having something else happen. When I first started this process way back in March, everything actually went really well at first. I had minimal swelling, minimal bruising, and what seemed to be really good healing. I was able to resume my walking right away. And I remember thinking, okay, this is going to be easier than I expected. And then that first soft tissue infection happened, and things just kind of went downhill quickly. And from there until now, it just has kind of felt like one setback after another. This most recent grafting surgery was also much harder on my body than the original surgery for some reason. The swelling was worse, the bruising was worse, my mouth was so swollen and so sore. Like I said, the stent wouldn't sit in my mouth correctly, which then affected my speech. I probably went back to work way too soon with that second surgery. Certainly sooner than my mouth was ready for. Talking all day, every day just made everything feel way more sore and irritated. And it has just been a lot. But one thing this entire experience has taught me is that A, healing is a journey, and B, that journey is not linear. You can think you're past the difficult part and then have another issue come up. You can follow every instruction and still have your body respond differently than somebody else's. No two people are exactly the same. And having a setback does not mean the whole process is failing, right? Sometimes a setback is just a setback. It's something that needs to be addressed to be able to keep your body moving forward. And I'm trying really hard to remember that. So now for the really good news. Dr. Dalla today said everything is healing really well. The tissue is filling in nicely, the graft looks good, and we're finally on a positive trajectory. And that meant I was able to schedule my final scan appointment, where they take that final scan, they make my permanent teeth. So that is officially set for mid-September. Obviously, everything still needs to keep healing the way that it is now, but Dr. Dalla believes I should be wearing my finals and finished with this journey by the end of October. the end of October. After everything that has happened, having an actual like finish line again feels almost unreal. There have been so many moments during this process where I didn't know when, or honestly, if I would ever get to that point. So being able to put a date on the calendar in the middle of September and on that day say, this is my final scan day, just gives me so much hope. There was also another really exciting piece of news today. Dr. Dalla actually thinks he might still be able to place or replace that sixth implant that he removed back in that same area. It's not really a guarantee or a for sure thing yet. We'll have to wait and just see how everything's continuing to heal. But he said the best part is it will not delay or postpone my final teeth. So even if he decides to add that implant back in, I can still move forward with my finals. I had honestly accepted that I was probably going to finish this journey with just 5 implants. And I was okay with that. Dr. Dalla was pretty confident that that was okay. A lot of people do all on 4. So all on 6 was, not really necessary. He went that route. It actually wasn't the plan. He was planning on doing all on 4s on both the top and bottom. And then during surgery, decided to do all on 6 on the top. But yeah, I had honestly accepted that I was probably just going to have 5 on the top, not a big deal, whatever. But knowing that a 6th implant on the top is still a possibility, just so things are more secure, is honestly exciting. But more than anything, I was just super excited that this wasn't going to push the finish line back even further, right? Um, so, yeah, I also really need to take a minute to talk about Dr. Dalla and the entire team at Aura 4X. This has not been the smoothest recovery. I have emailed late at night. I have called late at night. I have called and emailed over the weekend. I have needed to be seen unexpectedly last minute more than once. I have been scared. I have probably asked some of the same questions multiple times because I was looking for that reassurance. And every single step of the way, they have been kind, they have been patient, they have been supportive and genuinely caring about me through every part of this. And not once has any person from the like surgical staff to Dr. Dalla to the front office staff, like nobody has ever made me feel like I was a bother or like I was bothering them. And sometimes they have simply calmed me down and reminded me that I was going to get through it. And that's what I needed in those moments. When you're going through something medical, especially something this expensive and this emotional and this life changing, you need to be able to trust the people that are taking care of you. And even when things felt like they were going wrong, I never questioned or didn't trust Aura 4X or even Dr. Dalla. I have never felt like they were minimizing what was going on or avoiding me. They faced every complication with me and continued working towards the best possible outcome for me. And because of that, I am just so glad I chose Aura 4X because that trust has mattered more than I ever expected it would. So, takeaway, I guess, today's update is a positive one. I'm healing, the tissue's filling in, the graft looks good, my final scan is scheduled for mid September. And if everything just keeps moving in the right direction like it is right now, I will be hopefully wearing my final teeth by the end of October. I know this journey is not over yet. And after everything that has happened, I know to not get too far ahead of myself, but I feel hopeful again. And right now, that just feels really good. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been following along. Thank you for everyone who has checked in on me, who has encouraged me, who has shared your own experience with me. That has helped, and it has made me feel a lot less alone in some really difficult moments. So I will continue sharing my healing process and, of course, take you along to my final scan appointments in September. You know, just like with all of the rest of my health journey and weight loss, like I'm not going for perfection. I'm just not giving up on myself. And today, I'm really glad that I didn't emotionally or mentally give up on this process. And I hope you haven't either. So thank you. Have a great evening. Have a great day.